Carine, what did you tell you, for example, about the events of 1994? Because what he did, I mean, it was not necessary for him to do. I'm sure that what he could have done, he could have escaped from Rwanda or saving, for example, his own family. But for me, actually, this is really just the act of heroism. And it was the act of heroism that he gave a shelter to so many people, or actually, and it didn't really matter if they were Tutsi or Hutu. So he saved all of them.
Yes, I grew up with him telling me that everyone is human, everyone is Rwandan, especially in the situation in the genocide in Rwanda. He has always made it a point to call, whether you're Tutsi or Hutu, to call them all Rwandans, all our brothers and sisters. And he has continued to, through his mission, to try to unify Rwanda, because after the genocide, there was still a lot of division, as you could understand, a lot of trauma from the genocide. And so he has made it a point to try to bring people together through a real truth and reconciliation process that can bring about change and stability in Rwanda. And in doing that, he also spoke up against the dictatorship that we currently have in Rwanda. He has always talked about how the human rights abuses suffered by the Rwandan people today, the lack of the Rwandan government, the fact that the Rwandan government doesn't acknowledge all the victims of the war, and as well as even allow a narrative, the people as well as creating one specific narrative of the genocide and refusing other people's perspective, other people's experiences and point of view in order to maintain one narrative. And the president of Rwanda has found it offensive. The president of Rwanda isn't used to people criticizing his regime. As I mentioned, it's a dictatorship. So when my father started speaking up about it, when my father became an open critic of the regime, that's when the threats began from the government. But besides that, he has always spoken up for human rights and for justice and democracy in Rwanda and around the world.
Mm-hmm. And why did he do it? Because I mean, his life would have been much easier if he would have just stayed at home without doing it. Because I mean,
he says that anyone that was in his shoes would have done the same thing. He considers himself an ordinary man, and that is exactly the title of his autobiography. He calls himself an ordinary man because he believes that these are what ordinary people's actions would be. And he not only has a huge heart that welcomes everyone, but he also saw that as a duty to protect people because he was in the capacity to do so. And for him, it's not a matter. It's not about bravery. It's not about recognition. It has just always been about humanity. And he saw everyone as humans and everyone as equals, and an opportunity to save people, and so he did. In addition to that, he didn't have to adopt me either, and he and my mom actively looked for my sister and I after the genocide. They searched everywhere. They asked for the Red Cross, for the people, for the UN, whoever was in Rwanda on the ground to go find us because of how big his heart is, because of the love that he has for people. And I was lucky that they found us again at the end of the war, and I was adopted, and he has brought me up as his own daughter.